Hello, good day. Let's start this new lesson for Unreal Engine 5.7.2.
Hello, good day. In this video, I will show you how to create a door, well, a working door that opens and closes. So we have here, we already have a door that is working. Go by the door, press E, the door was open. Go through the door, on the door, it's a collision object. So you can walk straight through the door. Go here, back here, I can close the door. So I'll show you how to create a door like this in Blueprints. So what I'll do, right click, select Blueprint, choose Actor. So I just calling this red door for now, but I'll rename this afterwards. Double click. So this is the blueprint here. The first thing we need to do is to create a mesh, static mesh. And then, well, this static mesh will be door frame. So we have the starter content for this already. So what we'll do, you go by here. So you go to the details panel, you go by the area where it's supposed to insert the static mesh, and let's type in door frame. Okay, look at here, door frame. So see door frame here. Then we go back here. So we have the static mesh selected. Click here. Select static mesh. Now let's rename this. Door frame mesh. So we select the static mesh. We'll choose the door. This is the door here. So it doesn't align properly, but we'll fix this. We'll just drag this across till it's aligned. This looks relatively okay. Rename this. So if we realize that this is now the parent and this is the child. So the door frame is the parent in terms of the hierarchy. So the door mesh is the child of the door frame. Compile. Save. So we need to operate the door such that when the player, well, the player will be the PP third person character. When they go up to the door can open or the door can close. So there need to be something on this door that will allow the door to move, to allow the character to interact with the door. So what we need to do, we need to add a box collision. So what I'll do, type in box collision. I'll just name this box overlap. What I'll do, I'll carry this up, and then I'll adjust the scaling. So make this about 3. Like this, press R. So this is just a general area where the player can walk into this area. And once the player has walked in this area to the front or to the back, the player can interact with the door. So now that we have the box collision selected, just scroll along. So you go to the details panel, you scroll along. And we need to select an event. We're selecting 2 events. So we need to select one on component begin overlap. And the next event we need to select is on component N overlap. So you select this one first. Essentially, what this will do is that once there's an overlap, some event will begin. So go back to the box overlap here. So if you check, right now we are in the event graph. Now we can go to the viewport and we can see that this component is selected. So you can see it from the viewport, but we can also select it from the event graph. So we have this selected, we are in the event graph. Now you can select this. Let's drag this bit down. So the first thing we need to do is that we want our character to be able to interact with the store. So to do that, we need to link this blueprint to the blueprint of our character. So right click and type cast to BP third person character, because this is our character here. Connect here, connect here. The next thing we want to do is enable an input. So right click, type enable. This is it here, enable input. Connect this here. The next thing we want to do is that we want to be able to press some button to be able to interact with the door. Now, to be able to press some button, we need to get the player controller. So what we'll do, right click and select, well, I typed in player and we will choose here, get player controller. Now, the same thing we did on top here, we need to do at the bottom. So press Control D and we duplicate this. Right click and type disable. So disable input. So one on top here will be enabling input and the bottom will be disabling input. So you connect it like this. I want to mention that we could duplicate this and connect the player controller here, or we could just connect this like this. It doesn't really matter, it will work the same way. So the next thing we need to do is get a key. We want when you press a key on the keyboard, because the keyboard we will be playing with, when we press a key, it will start some action. So the key that we're interested in is the E key. So what I'll do, right click and type E key. So I need to scroll along and find the E key. That's it here. So this is an event, this is a custom event. When we press this E key, something will happen. So the next thing I'll do, I'll right click, I'll type flip, flip flop. The reason why I'm selecting flip flop is because we want to configure the controls in such a way when we press the key, the E key, the door will open. If the door is already open, when we press the E key again, the door will close. So the next thing we need to do is to add a timeline. The timeline will allow us to open and close the door. So what we'll do, we'll right click and type add timeline. Look at here. I'll just call this door timeline. Door underscore timeline. I'll connect this. And for the option B, I'll click this reverse submit end. Essentially, what this means is that this first one will open the door. And if this door is already open, we will choose option B, reverse the ends, we will close the door because the door is already open. We'll do the reverse, which is to close the door. So the next thing we need to do is to set the relative rotation. So right click. I think I'll choose this one. So if you realize here that when we choose set relative rotation, we already selected the door mesh. So we can do it like this. We can drag the door mesh here. Then we can come across here and then put set relative rotation, and this would have achieved the same effect. So this door mesh here would be able to rotate based on this function here. So you'll be able to achieve the same effect. I'll connect this here. So the next thing we need to do is to go to the timeline. So double click, you open the timeline, select track, choose add float track. Go into right click, select add key to curve float. Now for this, you would select value 0 and value 0, enter. Then we're going to go across here, right click, add curve float. You'll put value 2, and then you put 90. So type here value 90, 90, enter. So when you press 90, we can't see it. So what we'll do, we'll adjust here, zoom to fit vertical, and then we can select here, zoom to fit horizontal. Now, if we want to adjust the track length, so right now the timeline is 5. If we want to adjust the track length, we can just select 2, press enter, and this will be the track length right here. So you need to go back to the event graph. So I want to mention, we need to also make sure we have this connected. Compile. So now that we have configured the door timeline that's inside here, now that we have configured this, you can now drag from the track 1, type make rotator, and then we'll connect this. So we want this to adjust the Z value. The Z will be the blue. So what I'll do, I'll press Control, select here, and move this across to here, and let go Control. Then I'll connect here to here. Basically what this will do, this will allow the rotation along the Z-axis. The Z-axis is the blue axis. Press compile. And then what we need to do, we need to drag the blueprint into the scene. So what I'll do, I'll just drag this across somewhere here. So I'll wait for a door, I'll drag this blueprint across. Press E, rotate. So remember, I was mentioning that the blue axis is the Z axis. This is the blue axis here. So we're rotating here. Press W, bring this back down. Now press play. See, when you just go forward, you cannot walk through the door. So let's press E. The door is opened. Now you can walk through the door. So there you have it. That's how to make the blueprint for a door that can actually work. Door can open and door can close. So you can go back here, press E, and we can close the door. Go back here, press E, open the door. Go here, close the door. So there you have it.
That is it for this lecture. Do you want to learn more? Like and subscribe. You can also contact us, Impulse Response Enterprises Ltd.